Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with Sacha. I'm your hostess, Sacha Johnston. Tonight, we are going to talk about the types of autism resources that are available in Albuquerque. But before we do that, I want to say a quick thank you to Josh, my producer, and Steve Davis, the owner here at ProView Networks. And I want to remind our viewers to check us out on YouTube. You can Google my name, Sacha Johnston, and find my channel. We are streaming there live right now, and you can join in the conversation in the chat room, and you will also have an opportunity to ask questions of my guests a little later on. So I'm a mother, as well as a realtor and a treasure hunter, and I have two kids. My daughter is a junior at UNM, and my son is entering the first grade. 3 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism. And since then, I have learned as much as I can about autism, as well as the types of resources that we have available for people with autism here in Albuquerque. I've been happily surprised to learn that we have so many different resources available that people with autism have a wide variety of ways to gain the help that they need. So before we start talking about the types of resources available here in Albuquerque, I wanted to give you guys some statistics. And all of this information comes from research conducted by the Centers for Disease Control, and you can find it on their website. But 1 in 59 children is now being born with autism every day. And 80% of those children are going to be diagnosed with other medical issues. Autism affects all races and ethnicities, but it affects boys 4 times more often than girls. Almost half of all children with autism possess above average intelligence. People with autism are capable of living full and happy lives, and they usually learn to cope with the world around them. Early detection of autism in children is key to making sure that your child gets the help that they need and the resources available to them here in Albuquerque. The best way that you can make sure that you have early detection is to make a chart or keep track of your child's milestones. When they walk, when they talk, when they crawl, things like this. If your child starts missing any of these milestones, it's very important to talk to your child's pediatrician as soon as possible. The way that people are diagnosed with autism is through testing. And in order to get a child tested for autism, they need to have a recommendation from a pediatrician. Your pediatrician can give you information about where to get tested and how to contact those people. Autism testing can be done at a very early age, but most often it is caught between the ages of 3 and 4 years old. Now, luckily, Albuquerque Public Schools has lots of programs available for children with autism, starting as early as preschool. So getting an early diagnosis will allow your child to participate in some of these programs. My son was able to participate in an autism preschool program and was able to receive additional therapies because of it, and I feel this has been very helpful to him. APS breaks apart these autism groups into what's called pods, and these pods are at different schools around the city, and each pod focuses on different needs that the child may have. Children can get occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and adaptive physical education. And that's just what through APS offers. The programs, they start as early as preschool and go all the way through high school, but some of these therapies can continue throughout your child's life, even after they leave school. There are also therapies available that are offered through private companies. If you contact your insurance, they should be able to give you a list of approved therapy providers available in your area and that are approved by your insurance. Another great group is the New Mexico Autism Society. They have organized many different sensory-friendly events all over the city. And these events can range from everything from renting out a movie theater to show a newly released movie with the lights up and no previews, all the way to an event where kids get to meet their favorite superheroes. One of these amazing sensory-friendly events that I got to participate in recently was the Autism Symphony that they hold at Pope Joy Hall every year. They invite every APS student with autism to Pope Joy Hall, and they pay for it so that every student gets a chance to join. They have a sensory-friendly symphony, and they leave the lights up, and children are allowed to make noise, and it's not so structured like it would normally be. And they also have instruments set up out in the lobby for these children to give a try. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really interesting event, and they usually have a theme. This year's theme was Star Wars. So they play some of the big theme songs that we know from the movies, and they even have actors come out on stage and pretend to have lightsaber battles. This is just one of the many events that are available out there. New Mexico Autism Society also has information about people who provide therapy and services for people with autism spectrum disorder. Most of the children that are suspected of having autism in the metro area are referred to professionals for testing. There are many different places your child can get tested, but it's important to make sure you understand the type of test that's being conducted and why it's important to have that test. There are two different types of diagnoses that children with autism can receive. One is an educational diagnosis and the other is a medical diagnosis. Make sure you do your research and you understand the difference between those two types of therapies, diagnoses, and why each is important. When we come back, we're going to have our first guest who actually provides different types of therapies to children with autism and who used to provide therapy to my son. So if you're in the YouTube chat room and you have questions about different types of therapies, make sure you go ahead and put them in there now so we have a chance to ask. Thank you, and we'll be right back.
What is glamour? Frailty. What is desire? Diamonds. They say a life lived without passion is hardly worth living.
Ma'am? 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 Dang, this one made me feel all special.
High school sports are back. The 2018-19 season kicks off, and you could watch every ProView Network broadcast live on the NFHS network. Every moment, from every game, from every sport, including all NMAA state championships. Get your highly discounted monthly pass now. Go to ProViewNetworks.com and sign up. Watch New Mexico's best.
Dreamstyle Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club or DreamstyleRemodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
Hello, everyone, and we're back with Real Talk with Sacha. I'm Sacha Johnston, your hostess. Today, my first guest is Katie Basiri. Katie is a licensed therapist here in the state of New Mexico, and she actually used to provide therapy for my son. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for asking me.
So, Katie, I'd like you to actually tell us about your background so that everyone else can understand your education, training, and your experience.
Absolutely. So I am an independently licensed clinical therapist. I own a private practice on the west side of Albuquerque called the Treehouse, where I provide mental health counseling and support for children of all ages and their parents. My background is in counseling, but prior to getting my master's degree, I worked for a long time with children with autism and continue to work with children with autism. It's my life's passion.
So, Katie, I understand that you're actually an autism mom yourself.
I am.
Twins, is that correct? Did I get that right?
I have a 2-year-old who's diagnosed with autism, and one of my twins, who is 1, is diagnosed with autism.
Okay, so you actually have some experience with being an autism mom, and you kind of understand the struggle as well.
I do.
So, Katie, what kind of therapies do you offer to your patients?
Well, I consider myself a prescriptive play therapist, which means that children of varying needs come to see me, whether that's anxiety, depression, trauma, children dealing with grief, children with autism or developmental delays, Down syndrome. I see all kids. And what I do is I tailor my approach to what the family needs. So if a family is coming in and they're needing help with development, then I would use a play therapy approach that fits that need.
And tell me a little bit more about what play therapy is. I know because I got to see my son experience it, and it was great. But a lot of people, from what I experienced, actually don't know what play therapy is. So maybe elaborate on that for a little bit for us.
Play therapy is a specific type of training for mental health professionals that really takes into account children and their development. So if you went to a mental health therapist as an adult, a great deal of that therapy would be talk-based. Now for children with autism, all children, their language skills aren't as developed. And so to be able to sit down and have a conversation about your feelings just doesn't happen as easily.
Right.
And so play therapy is an approach that is meant to help children express their feelings and develop and grow without putting a lot of pressure on the language aspect of it. So that's why I value play therapy, because I feel like it really works for all children, no matter their need, no matter their language ability, and I really like the relationship part of play therapy.
Well, I noticed, my son was nonverbal when he was receiving play therapy, and I did notice a huge change in him where he would play with toys more appropriately and interact with other people while playing more appropriately. So I found it very valuable, and I never even realized how play can be important to development with children. So I think it was a very valuable experience, especially with my son having autism and being nonverbal. What other types of therapies would you think are beneficial to children? I mean, there's a lot of types of therapies out there, so can you just touch on some of those for us and kind of explain to us why it's important?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, ABA therapy, which you're going to talk about in the next segment, is incredibly beneficial for children on the autism spectrum. In addition to ABA therapy, I highly recommend speech therapy because communication and language is something that a lot of children with autism struggle with and need further support with. Occupational therapy is incredibly important to help a child understand the sensory and be able to tolerate and accept different sensory inputs into their body and regulate and stay calm. So occupational therapy is amazing for that. Physical therapy can help with a lot of the different gross motor movements, or if a child is having any challenges with the physical aspect. Like you said earlier, 80% of children with autism have co-occurring comorbid conditions. And so having a multidisciplinary team, ABA, occupational therapy, speech therapy, mental health therapy for the mental health side of it is incredibly important.
I can actually see the value in the mental health side of it, especially with those nonverbal kids, the kids who are having that trouble communicating because they can't get that out. And so Archer is lucky in that he's received every type of therapy you've mentioned. And I've seen the value in each type of therapy and how it helps a specific issue. So now Archer talks a lot more and sings songs and even counts to 20 in Spanish. And so I know that that's from all the professional help that he's received and all the hard work that he's done with these professionals. So I look forward to seeing him progress more with some of those therapies as well. How can parents find out more about some of these therapies that you've mentioned?
Well, you've already mentioned New Mexico Autism Society is an amazing resource for families. It's been an amazing resource for me as a parent, and it's an amazing resource to just find resources out in, not just in Albuquerque, but in other areas in New Mexico. So they do events throughout the state, and you can contact them just with questions that you have. So I would absolutely recommend New Mexico Autism Society for that.
And for those of you at home, New Mexico Autism Society has both a website and a Facebook account. So you can either join their Facebook page where they post all of the links to their events, or you can look them up on their website through nmautismsociety.org. They have all of the resources there. They have contact information. So if you want more information about some of these events that they have for autism children, please check them out. And it's not just autism children either. Children with other physical and developmental disabilities are welcome at these events as well. So if you're a parent of a child and your child is experiencing any of the issues we've talked about today, feel free to reach out to the New Mexico Autism Society. If they don't have anything to help you, they will know where you can go to for help. So Dr. Katie, excuse me, I'm so sorry, Katie. I always want to call you doctor, and I explain that. It's just because in our family, that's how we view you. You have been such an important part of our life before we got into different types of therapy. And I think it's just that's how high of an esteem we hold you in our house.
Thank you so
I know
much.
you're not really a doctor, but we feel like you are.
Thank you.
Katie, how can people get a hold of you or reach out to you to ask questions if they have questions about any mental health issues or more therapies that
Oh
they're
my
interested
goodness,
in?
absolutely. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me or contact me through my website, www.treehousenm.com. And it's just so important to me to serve as a resource for anyone in New Mexico who is having questions about autism, being a parent, being on the spectrum themselves. I see a lot of adults on the spectrum, and so feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate you being here today. And when we come back, we're going to have a BCBA specialist join us and talk about ABA therapy, what it is, and why it's important for children with autism. Thank you so much, and we'll be right back.
The service department at Gala Chevrolet is clean, modern, and ready for you. Our master technicians service every make and model, including certified service on any GM vehicle. Service done right the first time, every time, right here at the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened? Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, #life change will occur.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Sacha, everyone. I'm your hostess, Sacha Johnston. My next guest is Stephanie Perdue. She is a BCBA, and she provides ABA therapy to children with autism. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today. So I know I'm not explaining that properly. Do me a favor and explain to the public your education and your background, and then tell us what a BCBA is.
Perfect. So BCBA, there's a lot of acronyms, means Board Certified Behavior Analyst. To become board certified, you need to have a graduate level experience, either a master's or a PhD in education, psychology, behavior analysis. and then you go and pursue that certification. And what that certification just means is that I'm considered highly qualified in the implementation of Applied Behavior Analysis, ABA, another acronym. So mainly what I do in my field is use applied behavior analysis when working with families and individuals, and behavior analysis is a wide variety of many things that we can really work on.
So my son has a BCBA, and I think she does a great job. She explained it to me into layman's terms, which I don't know if this is right. Maybe you can help me. What she said is that they take a basic task that a child with autism has trouble performing, and they break that task down into smaller parts. And I guess a good example she gave is saying a word. Instead of saying the syllables, they actually break it down into sounding out each individual letter. So it's breaking down tasks that a child with autism has trouble with into smaller parts that they can then accomplish those smaller parts and then put them together to make them the bigger task. Does that sound right?
Yes, that's a great example. So that is a BCBA using applied behavior analysis. And so applied behavior analysis is really just a evidence-based teaching practice of how we teach a skill to anybody. There's lots of ways to teach a skill, just like there's lots of ways to lose weight, there's lots of ways to drive a car. And so what a BCBA does is take this applied behavior analysis part, and we look at a behavior and we see what is the best way to teach this individual. And a lot of times it is breaking it down into smaller steps so that we can really find what's the part of the skill that you're really struggling with. And that's a really great example of breaking down the word. Sometimes it can be a very big task. A very common one is hand washing. Some kids, it's those every little step to hand wash. Turn the water on, get the soap, rub your hands, turn the water off, dry your hands. To us, that's a very natural task and comes very simply. But for an individual with autism, a lot of times, that big task has too many steps. And so when they see it, they need it to be slowed down into tiny, smaller, little steps. And so a lot of times applied behavior analysis is taking a task and making it very simple, very concrete, so that they can practice it over and over again so they can get the entire skill.
So is applied behavioral analysis something that's appropriate for pretty much every child with autism?
Yes, that is another great question. It is appropriate for every child with autism, actually every individual with any ability. It's an evidence-based practice again, but the reason they use it for autism is there's so many articles and there's tens of thousands of research articles showing that this skill is very effective for individuals with autism because the way that ABA really looks at a behavior, looks at a skill, and really breaks it apart in the way they teach it. Again, it's a big teaching strategy, so it can be very individualized. Kids who are maybe higher functioning, have a lot more verbal and social communication skills, need a very different strategy for kids who are maybe lower functioning, working on those basic daily living skills. They can still use ABA therapy. It's just modified, taking these simple skills, these simple strategies, and then applying them where necessary and tweaking them.
So I was actually shocked to find that a lot of other autism moms had not heard of ABA therapy. So I was wondering, could you tell us how long it's been around and how long it's been in use for specifically children with ASD?
Yeah. So the philosophy of ABA really started back in the 1930s and the 1940s with a psychologist called B.F. Skinner. He's considered the father of ABA, but it really wasn't used with individuals with developmental disabilities in the beginning until the 1970s, 1978, and so that's when we really started seeing it. So just within the last 30 to 40 years have we really seen it really develop into this highly effective strategy for kids with developmental disabilities and then more and more into the autism spectrum disorder.
So I hate to put any one therapy as more important than another, but if a parent could do research into ABA therapy, do you think it's something that every parent of an autistic child should look into?
Absolutely. I think ABA strategies are something that all parents should look into and something that all business providers should look into and all people in relationships should look into. Again, it's a strategy that it works in positive reinforcement, but it works with everybody. A lot of SLPs I work with use ABA strategies. ABA is used with people with dementia, with anorexia, substance abuse, addiction, along with developmental disabilities and ABA. So it's a technique that can be used anywhere. And so it is very effective because even if you can't really get a lot of the ABA therapy, you can learn some of the ABA strategies that are very, very simple and very effective. As an ABA autism mom, you probably heard of the first do the dishes, then you can have ice cream. That's an ABA strategy. Simple, right there.
So positive reinforcement in itself seems to be an ABA strategy.
Yes. Yep.
So I know there's also some misconceptions about age limits as to when ABA therapy can be administered or whether it's going to be effective as someone with autism gets older. So I would like you to address, is there an age limit for when ABA therapy either doesn't work or you can't get it anymore? And do you think that age affects the ability of ABA therapy to work?
It's another really great question. Science does show that if you get ABA at a really young age, between 18 months to 3 to 4 years, it is the most effective long-term when you think of the trajectory of development. But the age cap is really set in place by insurance companies. And so just recently, New Mexico has decided we're taking the age caps off. So insurance companies can no longer say you are too old for ABA, anybody can have it. So it really is important at any age. Again, it's a strategy that they're very easy to implement a lot of the times, and it doesn't matter your age or your ability, that it's very important to just seek it out, find some information, find some research, because everybody's teachable. ABA works on the principle of positive reinforcement and that behaviors are learned. Everybody can learn. That old rule of dogs can't learn new tricks. They can, you just have to find the right motivator and reinforcement for them. So it's a very vital skill and a very great avenue for people to go down and look.
So if I happen to know some people with adult children that have autism and they're pretty severe on the spectrum, nonverbal, is it possible for them to start ABA therapy now even though they never received it before and didn't get it as a child?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter when you start. Again, it's just a teaching strategy. It might take longer for you to learn new skills or to unlearn bad and challenging behaviors, but you can still learn. We all have motivation within us to want to learn, to be independent, to grow. And so it really doesn't matter what your level is or what your age is. You could be 85 and you might just want to learn how to have a more positive relationship with your boss. Or all the way to being 16 and just wanting to learn how to use the toilet independently. It doesn't matter what your skill is, that the ABA can be very effective for you.
So if a parent wanted to learn more about ABA therapy or other types of therapies offered, where would you recommend that they go for this information?
Those are really great questions. You guys did recommend the New Mexico Autism Society. I also think the CDD is really great, the Center for Development and Disability. The CDC actually has a really great resource as well, just kind of globally talks about autism, ABA, what it means, what it looks like, the diagnoses. There's also the Department of Health has some really good information. Parents Reaching Out is another really good one. But I do think New Mexico Autism Society and Autism Speaks are really good because they look at both within the city and within the state.
And now I feel guilty because I forgot Autism Speaks. You're absolutely right about that. Before we leave, I want to know if somebody wants to reach out to you and ask more questions about ABA therapy or find out more information, what's the best way for them to find you?
You can definitely reach out to my website, which is www.bstinabq, yes, it's all letters.com. And even if I don't have the answer, I'm very passionate to make sure I get you to the right person. And so I work a lot with other providers in different areas because we're very much about collaboration. So even if I don't have the answer, I will make sure that I will find somebody that I can send you to.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I feel like this show wouldn't have been complete without information about ABA therapy, and having a BCBA tell us about ABA therapy was even better. If you have any more questions that you would like to ask Katie or Stephanie, both of their contact information can be found in the comments section of our YouTube channel with Real Talk with Sacha, and you just look under episode 3. Both of their websites and email addresses are there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. If you have questions about autism resources available in Albuquerque, please feel free to reach out to either myself or either of the two ladies who are here tonight, and we will point you in the right direction. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.